Remember, before the break, I was talking about these places outside the central nervous system called ganglia, and there's where these sensory neuron cell bodies are found. Well, the satellite cells surround neuron cell bodies in the peripheral nervous system. In other words, they're almost always located in these sensory ganglia. We'll talk more about those when we get to the to the spinal cord. You can see what they do. I don't have a microscope slide that will show you what they look like. I do have slides that show you what myelin looks like and the nodes of Ranvier and all that sort of stuff. So this is really probably the last you'll hear from me about satellite cells, but you do need to know that they are a support cell and they're found in the peripheral nervous system. Most notably, and I will show you a slide of an area where there can be found around peripheral sensory ganglia in the peripheral nervous system. So they're a kind of support cell. Now, well, here's a picture of what they look like. This is from your book. You can kind of see what they look like. No big deal. Now we're going to look at a couple of the support cells in the central nervous system. And probably the most important one, at least for my money, is this thing called an astrocyte. The reason it's called an astrocyte is, well, you'll see in just a second, it sort of looks like a star. This is a support cell in the central nervous system. I don't know whether you know this or not. Maybe some of you do, especially if you work in hospitals or have some sort of medical background. The human brain is isolated from the rest of the body, believe it or not, by something called the blood-brain barrier. This becomes really important in infectious disease and how you treat infections in the central nervous system, because the astrocytes seem to form this barrier. It doesn't make sense why the brain should be isolated, maybe at first glance, but the more you learn about the brain, the more you realize it's probably a good thing. So astrocytes seem to be involved in the formation of this barrier. They form a lot of the structural support of the central nervous system. They're known to be involved in repair of neural damage. These cells divide. Unlike neurons, these cells divide. And they seem to be important in some aspects. We really don't understand too much about it, but in certain aspects of neuronal development. So astrocytes, you can see the picture up there. I don't have a microscope slide that illustrates them, but you can see they look like little stars. And they're located throughout the central nervous system, especially in the brain, of course, where they have very important jobs in being helpers for the neurons. It's like the neurons are the boss, but they really can't exist without all these helpers.